Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are. I think we're going to go ahead and kick off our webinar this afternoon. I'd like to welcome you all to our first Sites Community Call of 2021, officially. As those of you who joined us last year know, GBCI holds these calls as part of our commitment to create a safe space for our Sites community of dedicated practitioners, where we can convene, provide program updates, detailed project presentations such as today, and topical webinars. So today we will hear about a fascinating Sonoran desert project at Arizona State University. This is the Orange Mall Green Infrastructure Project, and they have certified to Sites Gold. Long a leader in innovation and investing in a sustainable future, this is the first Sites certified project for the university, and we hope that you're all joining us today in good health and ready to hear an inspiring story. Thank you for the agenda slide, Paul. Here's a quick look at our agenda. After a brief Sites program update from Danielle, we'll hear the multiple perspectives from the team at the Orange Mall project, and we will leave time for Q&A at the end. A few housekeeping items for everyone. We are recording the session. Thank you. We will be sending it out to all registrants afterwards, so you'll all receive a copy. And we encourage you to send questions or comments right in the chat box. Excuse me. Feel free to send them throughout the presentation. We'll try to get to all of them within our time. And as with previous community calls, the live session is approved for one site-specific CEU, so there's no need to note the course details shown in the slide here. They'll be included in the materials that we send after the session. So thank you once again for joining us today. I'd like to turn it over directly to our Sites program lead, Danielle. It is all yours.
Thank you, Anna Grace, and hello and welcome everyone. As many of you know, Sites was developed with rigor and flexibility in mind, applying to a wide variety of projects from university campuses like the one at ASU that we will hear about shortly, to government facilities, public parks, corporate headquarters, and many others. Sites fills an important gap in properly addressing the space outside of and between buildings, yet also for projects with no buildings at all. Because while every building has a site, not every site has a building. With that said, Sites and LEED can be used in tandem, also like today's project has done. For those of you who may be new, the main resources for Sites are the Sites V2 rating system and accompanying reference guide shown here. These are a result of over 8 years of research and development, which included input from numerous stakeholders, technical advisors, several public comment periods, and insight from a multi-year field test. These documents outline the criteria and performance-based metrics for sustainable land design and development. At the same time, we view these as living documents that will evolve over time as research and experience generate more knowledge. The rating system consists of 18 prerequisites, 48 optional credits, totaling 200 potential points with 4 levels of certification. Yet beyond points and credits, Sites was developed to ensure we create places that are resilient, efficient, regenerative, and provide essential ecosystem services, creating a healthy habitat for everyone. Currently, there are over 200 registered and certified projects represented in 15 countries, including the US, Canada, China, Japan, Mexico, Brazil, Italy, Spain, and many others. In the US, projects are located in 38 US states and Washington, DC. Last year, we also formally introduced a pre-certification pathway to guide and recognize projects in their planning phase. Recent landmark projects that have achieved Sites include the first GSA Sites V2 project, shown here in the bottom left, the first parks in Dallas, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, and the most recent one in Austin, Texas, and of course, the project that we'll hear about today. The Orange Mall renovation is a wonderful example of transforming a campus using natural integrated systems. It's also an exciting client team collaboration that demonstrates a strong commitment to implementing sustainable design, understanding landscape performance, and creating inviting and beneficial community spaces. Developed in concert with the adjacent LEED Platinum and emerging Net Zero Student Pavilion, Orange Mall became the first Site certified project at ASU, and the second Site certified project in the state of Arizona. It follows the pioneering and beautiful work of the Site certified pilot project in Scottsdale, George Dock Cavalier Park, which is designed by JJR and Floor Associates. The case study is on our website if you're interested in learning more about this one. And now I have the honor of introducing our excellent lineup of speakers. So representing Arizona State University are Norman Yatabe and Dr. Cheng. Norman is a landscape architect in the Office of the University Architect at ASU. He provides landscape architectural planning, design, and project management guidance for capital improvement projects across the university campuses. He's a registered landscape architect in the state of Arizona and serves as the project manager for this project along with the other sites projects at ASU. Dr. Cheng is assistant professor of landscape architecture and senior sustainability scientist at ASU. Her research and practice focuses on applying green infrastructure planning and design processes and outcomes for building community resilience and addressing climate justice. She's a recipient of the Landscape Architecture Foundation 2020 Case Study Investigation Program for this project, and her lab managed and contributed to documenting social and ecological landscape performance that we'll hear about today. Cindy Quinn served as the Sites Project Administrator for this project and is also on a second Sites ASU project currently underway. Cindy is the owner of Ecological Environments, a consulting firm in Chandler, Arizona. She's a sustainability consultant and works with designers, owners, and contractors, helping them to achieve their green certification goals. She has a background as a registered architect and has her accreditation as a LEED AP, a WELL AP, and a Sites AP. And Allison Caldwell is a founding partner of Colwell Scheller, a collaborative landscape architecture and urban design practice based in Phoenix, Arizona, which also was awarded the Arizona ASLA 2020 Firm of the Year. With over 17 years of professional experience in projects of varying scale and complexity, she has led the design on many of the most imaginative and technically challenging projects in the state. Ms. Caldwell is both a registered architect and landscape architect. And now I'm excited to pass it to Norman to start the presentation.
Okay, Danielle, well, thank you very much. We are really happy to be here and to be able to talk about our project. Hang on. There we go. Yes, so the Orange Mall Green Infrastructure Project is our first sustainable sites project, and we are just so excited that we've been able to achieve the gold certification, and are happy to be able to tell you all about it. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of background into Arizona State University. We have 5 campuses in Arizona, 4 of them in the Phoenix metro area, 1 at Lake Havasu, and we also have several satellite locations, including Mesa, Arizona, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, and Santa Monica, California. ASU was founded in 1885 as the Tempe Normal School, and in 2021, we have a total student population of just over 124,000 students. Of all the campus locations, the largest is in Tempe with a student population of around 70,000 students. So we have a lot of kids here, and hopefully they'll be back when we get this COVID under control. In terms of our environmental setting, Tempe is located at the northern edge of the Sonoran Desert, which also extends into the southeast portion of California and a part of northern Mexico. Arizona has a diversity of biome types, and the largest one being the desert biome, which is where we are located. Now, compared to the rest of the country, we do live in a pretty harsh environment here. Essentially, we have very little rain, we have pretty high temperatures and lots of sun. So it can be a little tough living here, but like everything else, we have adapted to these conditions. One thing in living in the desert that we have been all experiencing, and actually compared to the rest of the country, everyone knows what the effects of urban heat island and climate change are. Here in Arizona, this has manifested itself in terms of higher temperatures, even less rain, and even more extreme weather events. And this is just a monsoon rain you're seeing and a haboob, which is a dust storm rolling through the valley. So these effects have actually become worse in the last few years, and we have noticed and are seeing the impacts of these changes. So to address the negative impacts of climate change, ASU has committed to leading the world by example and has established a series of sustainability goals, which in essence permeate all aspects of university life. To meet these goals that we've established, our approach includes advancing sustainable technology and research, converging the university's mission with its operations, raising awareness of climate change and resource depletion, and learning from the practice of implementation. And two examples of that are our Campus Harvest program, which addresses our food connection goal. There's two parts to it. One is the date collections and citrus collections from our on-campus palms and citrus trees. And sorry, this seems to be a little slow here. In terms of staff and faculty involvement, we extend participation and interaction by staff, faculty, and students in all aspects. And what you're seeing here is just our grounds operations and students and staff participating in zero waste events and some of the food harvest collection. Since 2006, ASU has utilized LEED as the measuring stick for sustainable building design. We currently have a total of 58 LEED certified projects, including 5 platinum, 33 gold, 18 silver, and 1 certified. We really see on the flip side, sustainable sites as being that perfect vehicle to help us elevate the significance and role of the landscape in supporting ASU's sustainability mission. We also have several frameworks in place that help guide development, including irrigation master plans, campus master plans, individual landscape master plans, and this is an example of our hardscape master plan, which identifies strategies for updating all of our Tempe campus malls, most of which date back to the early 60s. So in 2016, the Student Pavilion project was created to house all student government and student group activities into one building in the heart of campus. The goal here was to achieve a LEED Platinum and make it also ASU's first net zero energy building. We also saw this as an opportunity to address the area in front of Student Pavilion. So this is just context, middle of campus and Student Pavilion and Orange Mall. And use Orange Mall as the first implementation of our hardscape master plan. So, sorry, I got to go back here. So we essentially had 2 projects that were working in one project area with 2 different consulting groups. And one was led, the Student Pavilion was led by Weddell Gilmore as the prime architect, and Orange Mall was being led by Allison's group as the prime landscape architect. And I think with that, I'm going to pass control over to Allison to talk about the project specifically.
All right, thanks, Norman. All right, let's see. All right, so the stakeholder engagement process was really well attended by the students, and the desires for the building and the corresponding outdoor spaces were integral to the development of the larger section of Orange Mall. And there we go. And over half of the top 20 desires included goals for the outdoor spaces or about the creation of indoor outdoor spaces that jointly met the goals. One of the largest challenges of this project was the location, because the site is in the middle of the heart of the campus. next to the library, the student union, lecture halls. And so around 12,000 students and faculty walk through the site each day. And then during the hotter times of the month, the pavement can be over 130 degrees Fahrenheit. It's really hot. And there wasn't a lot of shade. And then as the campus is densifying, a lot of the outdoor spaces are being taken up with larger footprints for the building and taller buildings. And then even during just mild flooding or storm events, the buildings around this area would experience flooding. So it's just interesting that just a couple of storm events each year, the few times that it rains, it really pours, but those couple storms make up that 7.7 inches that Norman was talking about. So there were other challenges to the site. There was many utilities and really shallow duck banks. And we found out very soon that we were going to have challenges getting the water across the site with these shallow utilities. The design priority was pedestrians first. However, we needed to accommodate a 24-foot fire lane right through the middle of the site, as well as a loading dock that needed to access through the site for large trucks. And then the central plant is in this area here, and the trucks needed to kind of get around the building from the central plant. So taking all of that into consideration, plus the student feedback, the project goals of the landscape were to first prevent flooding in adjacent buildings during our monsoon season, mitigate the microclimate to maximize comfort and use, provide social space to reduce student stress, create flexible event space as a social amenity, create a perceivable educational living laboratory, support ASU's position on global sustainability, and achieve sustainable site certification. So by creating a dominant promenade through the site connecting to all the other highly used buildings, we saw an opportunity to create a space that transforms the heart of the campus into a green heart of the brand of ASU with living laboratories at front and center. The renovation transforms the asphalt paved vehicular roadway into a shady pedestrian mall. The covered, just kind of showing you a couple of the features. This is a covered pre-function space for the student pavilion right here. And then moving to the east, this is the Palm Court with perfect dappled shade, and it allows for both programmed and non-programmed activities such as student projects, concerts, protests. And then down here at the south is the rain garden, which has seating for a little bit more quiet off the busy thoroughfare for respite. And then the bioswales to the east flank the promenade. They have bridges for access across the site, and then steps down into the bioswales for encouraging access into the gardens. And then the benches act as check dams throughout the site to kind of slow the movement of water. And then one last thing was the roof rainwater is brought down into the scuppers in these two locations, and then they traverse the site via these visible runnels down into the rain garden. And here is an aerial view of the eastern portion of Orange Mall, just pretty soon, pretty quickly after it was constructed, as well as a view of it in action. And the same thing here. And the swales allow 100% of a 10-year storm event to pass through without overtopping, and have lowered the high water elevation for a 100-year storm event by 1 inch. So they're working really well. The bioswales are designed as an amenity so that the students can access the space both in classes and recreationally. And 93% of the stormwater system was designed as an amenity. This diagram shows the water conveyance system. And basically, I think it's pretty clear, but the north bioswales fill up quickly, and then overflow comes to the south bioswale, and then it comes down to this low point, which is the rain garden. And then the west side of the site kind of has its own series, And anything that is not used in the landscape at this point will overflow to the retention and sports field south project site. And then there is a condensate water feature that is located at the front door. I'll show you a little bit about that. So the design of the water feature took inspiration from the living caves in Arizona and the resultant stalactites that drip and grow from the rich minerals as water travels through the soils and rock above. Karshner Caverns in southern Arizona is one such place, and definitely worth visiting if you're ever in the area. It's really fantastic. Here are some of the materials that we used. And then just a little bit about how it works. So the marine grade brass pipes were designed so that the smaller pipes carry water during times of the year when there is less condensate. And then the larger pipes carry the higher volume, and it usually happens in times with increased flow, where we have higher outdoor air humidity and more indoor activity. And then here is the finished feature, as well as it in action on the far right. So the Palm Grove provides the much needed flexible event space for both day and night use and easily accommodates a high pedestrian volume. Another key goal was to provide shade on day one. In fact, shade is the most important microclimate element necessary to facilitate social connection. And it's extremely difficult to do in the desert, as our native trees grow very slowly and can take even more than 15 years to create a decent shade canopy. Additionally, the desert trees have very small leaves and they have really low evapotranspiration rates. And so the student pavilion is facing south. It's got glazing here so the ballroom and meeting rooms can connect with the outdoor space. So the Palm Grove was located in this location. And I know the palms may not seem like an intuitive choice when you think of the desert, but as you can see from this inspiration photo from a nursery, the palms provide the perfect kind of shade. It's filtered and allow for a lot of movement around the trunks. In addition, these date palms are drought tolerant, and as you heard earlier, the dates are harvested and sold. And then here you can kind of see looking down into the space is a key feature in the success of the space. Meanwhile, the trees in the other areas are maturing, and with the added benefit of the supplemental irrigation in the bioswales, they will provide shade and cooling for many years to come. The planting consisted of all low water use native or desert adapted species that require very little maintenance. The trees require little pruning as they are off the periphery, they're kind of on the periphery of the pedestrian walkways, and the grasses and accents require maintenance only once per year. And we were able to more than double the biomass density index from the existing conditions. So it's been great. All right, we're going to transition to Cindy Quinn.
Thank you, Allison. Let's see. It's not moving forward. There we go. Since sites was still new and unfamiliar to the team, I was brought on as a sites project administrator because of my background as a lead consultant. Understanding lead made for a natural transition to learning sites because the two rating systems are laid out in a similar fashion and are somewhat similar in their submission processes. Also, Sustainable Sites Initiative and USGBC have done a really great job of aligning some of the credits and making sites and lead synergies really easy to implement. The Student Pavilion was registered under LEED version 2009 and was pursuing and eventually earned Platinum certification. This meant that a lot of the credits that shared synergies were being pursued by the LEED project, and we only needed to refer to the LEED project to earn those sites credits. So for example, the LEAD project earned SS credit to development density and community connectivity. That meant the sites project could earn C1.6 locate projects within existing developed areas. And the LEAD project earning SS credit 3 brownfield development meant that sites projects could earn C1.5 redeveloped degraded sites, and so on. So in all, the sites project was able to earn 40 out of our 100 points from the shared credits. One of the benefits we found of pursuing sites was an emphasis on enhancing health and well-being. Due to the rapid densification of the campus, higher buildings with larger footprints were replacing meaningful outdoor spaces. We incorporated areas to support mental restoration located near the rain garden, which is a serene environment that mitigates distractions of pedestrian traffic on the main walkways. Fixed and movable seating niches are extended into the garden, located down here, for a feeling of immersion with the plantings. Native or desert adapted low water use plants promote wildlife habitat, pollination, and clean water as it moves through the site. One challenge we had in the sites process was that the LEAD project and the sites project had separate design teams. I wasn't involved in the LEAD certification of the student pavilion, which presented a challenge in maintaining our site scorecard throughout the process. We were at the mercy of the LEAD project a little bit. We couldn't really be certain that we would have those 40 points until the student pavilion was certified. And on the other side, it could have simplified the student pavilion's LEAD documentation process had they used the sites to lead synergies. So we would recommend having a unified design teams for the building and the site. One lesson we learned is that it's really important to educate your contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers in sustainable practice and in the documentation needed for the certification process. Even with the pre-construction meetings and site check-in meetings with the contractor, this was very difficult. For the 4 credits listed here, we sent out letters to our manufacturers and suppliers asking them to provide documents such as a corporate sustainability report, chemical assessments, environmental product declarations, and so on. Sites is so new that this documentation is foreign to them and it was nearly impossible to track down. The trades that have been influenced by LEAD were the most successful, but still we pretty much got just that LEAD data sheet showing recycled content. So as a long-term goal for ASU, as we continue to work with these repeat vendors, our hope is that those vendors will begin to recognize the importance of sustainability and that use the site's process to take a look at their own practices and implement sustainable actions. We also hope that the techniques they learned through this site's process can be carried forward to their own future projects. One example of that are these silvacells. The design team specified the silvacell system to allow healthy tree growth under paved surfaces. At first, the contractor had no prior knowledge of the system and it wasn't intuitive to them. They were used to the traditional way of placing trees in over-compacted soils and the occasional use of structural soil in tree pits. But after the product arrived and they had their training, they were really surprised at how easy it was to install. In addition to spreading the message of sustainability to our contractor and subs, this project was a really great opportunity to spread the message to ASU community and the public. Using the framework of C9.1 promote sustainability awareness and education, we had several opportunities. First, ASU website has a virtual tour where people can use the interactive map and visit all of ASU's sustainability points of pride, including the Orange Mall project. Second, and in-person tour guides will take prospective students through the Orange Mall and talk about its sustainable features. And finally, seen here are a few examples of visual graphics around the site that educate people a bit about another feature, our water monitoring stations. And Chingwen will talk about that.
Thank you, Cindy. So my role is to provide documentation for gaining additional stormwater and social benefit credits for the sites. And this is the first time I would say the collaboration between academic unit and the operational unit on monitoring and research landscape projects on campus. And this type of research is a collaborative effort between different researchers, graduate students, undergrad students, and namely I notify here are the Hydrogeology Lab at our Landscape Architecture Program and Design School, and also the Central Arizona Phoenix Long-Term Ecological Research Project at the School of Sustainability. So for the stormwater monitoring efforts, it is worth noting that again, this site it's within a larger drainage shed, as mentioned earlier. So we installed the water quantity and quality measurements on the site, as shown on the map. Those blue dots are where the soil moisture sensors are, and so that's for water quantity. And then there's also a water gauge stations to track the water level. That's a blue star. And for water quality, we have the automated water sampling equipment that was stored in the receptacle containers. That means Arizona State University's design standards, and which shown on the red dots. And the triangle red dot are the input and output points where we collect the samples to compare. So for the water quality, those are some results. We measure the phosphorus and the nitrogen, and we see a more significant uptake on the total phosphorus contents, which also have implication for mitigating the total suspended solids. That's an indicator for improving the water quality. So we are really able to show the evidence that the series of bioswales does have effect on improving the water quality. And for the water quantity, according to the soil moisture sensor and the water meter, we can see during the storm events, there is a pike, a big peak of those water being contained in the soil infiltrate through. And in addition, we also measure the evapotranspiration transpiration rate from the plants, and which will show the various native plants, we see a range of the percentage intake of water. So the combination of soil and plants, we show the evidence. Actually, we were able to retain more than 10 years stone event, up to 25 stone events for this design. So I think it is a great kind of evidence to illustrate how the bioswales and plants and soil have the effects to mitigate stormwater runoff. And with Landscape Architecture Foundation case study support, we were able to do additional monitoring this past summer on the thermal comfort, and using this median temperature measurement to really sense how the people was, the thermal comfort would feel at ground level. And we were able to simulate what was the before and after the construction, and show the evidence that it can decrease up to 24 degrees Fahrenheit between the hard asphalt and under the shade of the trees. So those are another evidence to show how we can mitigate urban heat island effect through our landscape design. And for social benefits, health benefits, we integrate with the classes and teaching and research opportunity to have students do their observations, and we have graduate students to analyze the data and to show that in the locations and durations where and when the students spend their time on the site, And we categorize from the mental restoration and the social interaction and based on the site criteria. So again, we are able to show the evidence that the students do take advantage of these beautifully designed landscapes, and that can help to improve their stress removal and increase the social interactions. And as Cindy mentioned, that this site did provide multiple opportunities for education and outreach, and we were able to engage graduate students, undergrad students to do research as part of the thesis. And we are able to provide classes, tools as well, and engage more than 500 students so far to tour and understand the site. And we are also able to show to outside communities such as Maricopa County Flood Control District and a charter school in Phoenix, the Pioneer Academy. And both of them actually showed interest of getting site certification on their campus. So in conclude, I'd like to point out a few lessons learned and the great benefits and impact we received from this site certified project. The first is really to be able to cooperate with other units on the university and to make sure the campus to be part of the sustainable practices and to ensure our sustainability of campus at the Arizona State University to benefit all our communities. And also it provides evidence-based design, which can help to improve our practices in our region. And this is a long-term commitment. I think we are all hoping, and we are also very humble and honored to be part of the site's community today to share the experiences and following the step as the early adopters of Flow Associates and other practitioners in the region together to make sites as fundamental common practices for our sustainable futures. So with that note, I'll give you the floor back to Norman.
Thanks, Qingwen. So I really just want to say that we are all extremely happy with how this project has turned out, and we are very honored, as said earlier, to have achieved gold level certification. For ASU, this really, as Qingwen said, has been a great experience in terms of involving different groups within ASU, from our academic side, our operations side, and our planning, design, and implementation side as well. Moving forward, ASU has committed to incorporating sustainable site certification as part of future projects when it makes sense and when we have the right scale and composition of project. And to that end, we have a second sustainable sites project in the works. This is over at our Nelson Fine Arts and Music School area. And this is another project that we are really looking forward to getting site certified through GBCI. And with that, I just wanted to end off by saying we want to thank Danielle and her team at GBCI very much for their support and assistance in our efforts here. And with that, I would like to turn it back over to Danielle.
Thank you, Norman and Qingwen and Cindy and Allison. That was really inspiring and informative. We really appreciate you taking the time to share all this about your project and for adopting sites for ASU. I do want to pass it now to see if we have any Q&A. Paul, do you see any new questions coming through? One of the questions that came through the chat was about, and I think it's been responded to, but what was one of the most difficult sites credits aside from the material credits? And do you want to talk about that in case others didn't see the chat box? I think Cindy, you might have responded.
Sure. I mentioned that the soils credits presented a challenge first because none of us had really dealt with any of the requirements that are in the soils prerequisites and credits. So there was a bit of a learning curve as far as understanding what a reference soil is and, you know, restoring our soils to kind of a reference soil. And also Arizona having, you know, it's in our arid climate, organic matter doesn't really cooperate as well as it does in other areas. So the requirements for organic matter were, I guess, not appropriate, but working with the sites reviewers, that was easily able to be amended, worked around.
Yeah, and it's a great point, just bringing up to others on the call who might have projects or who have projects that they're thinking of is to really reach out to GBCI, or when you have a project, the reviewers, to discuss any concerns, especially if you're early on and it's a prerequisite, because we do understand that there's a lot of unique situations and contexts and climates that we want to, and as I said earlier, sites is considered a living document. And so we're learning as well through all these applications. See, another question. I think, Allison, you talked a little bit about the Education Living Laboratory, and I know there was some other information mentioned through the landscape performance work. Can you talk a little bit more about this living laboratory idea?
Sure. Yes, first of all, it was great to have Chingwen's, you know, the academic side of it, because it's one thing to have, say you're going to design a living laboratory and you want it to be one of the primary features of the project, but if you don't have students and faculty interested in kind of performing research on it and proving some of the assumptions, then it really isn't as useful as it could be. And I think in this case, I would say also is really beneficial to us to have that data that they have contributed, because a lot of times we go in trying to talk about how much shade we really need and to cool the space, and then projects get VE'd, and it's really hard if we have that data that Chingwen and her teams have presented to us to show that we can cool the space by 24 degrees. I mean, that's amazing. That is really, really amazing. And we've always said it cools the space, and we know that people experience it, but now having that data has just been really beneficial moving forward with other projects.
That is great. That is, and just for those that are new to the sites rating system, we do have a performance monitoring credit, really trying to incentivize projects that are in their design and construction phase to really think beyond that and have a plan to monitor and then also share that information with a wider audience. So this is really a great example of that. Let's see, other questions? We have one here. In terms of timeline, was it better to use the equivalency from the LEED project and apply it to the site scorecard? Were the LEED and sites projects happening concurrently? Anyone want to take that?
Sure, I'll take that. So the projects were happening concurrently, but the certification, we were following it along the whole time, but we didn't end up submitting for, I want to say it was getting close to that 2-year point after construction. So it definitely was to our advantage to use the LEED project equivalencies.
Great, great. And just for other updates that we have with sites internally in the program is that we are looking at those synergies and equivalences between the two systems and trying to really streamline that even more. So that's something that we worked on most of last year, and we're hopefully we'll release something this year about that. Another question here. I did not spot the use of stormwater cisterns to capture rainwater events to feed arid irrigation. Also, have you looked into the Canadian irrigation system by deploying micro porosity soaker hoses fed by rainwater cisterns? Who wants to take that one?
I can kind of address that one a little bit.
Okay.
A few years ago, we established one of those master plans that I referred to was an irrigation master plan for the Tempe campus. Before that plan was in place, we had 153 separate irrigation systems around campus, and the master plan goal was to try and consolidate systems so that we would only end up with about 53 controllers, all on a master central control system to control everything. Because of how our campus is set up, we have very little space, and the infrastructure to put in cisterns is really difficult for us. And that, combined with the fact that our rain events are are becoming less now, and we don't get a lot of cost benefit from putting in that infrastructure when the ability to capture rain is pretty low. So we have opted not to use cisterns in this particular application. It is something that we're looking at for in future, but until we come up with a whole lot of other infrastructure improvements around campus, it's, again, for us, it's extremely difficult.
And I would just kind of add the soaker hose, just here, all these plants, we just have them on drip irrigation so they get just what they need. And so that might work in some areas, but here it just isn't advisable due to the amount of water that we're trying to use.
Great, thank you. Some other questions we got. How did sites change your process, and for this project or maybe some future projects, how would that change?
Well, I think it was mentioned earlier that it's really given us a process and a formality to how we go through the planning, design, and operations side, construction and operations sides of these projects. And being able to work with the different groups within ASU so that we are all working towards one common goal has really been the standout point that I think we've all noticed. And we were getting really good support from our senior administration to use this as the model for projects moving forward. And it is happening on other projects right now concurrently with that are going on campus, some of which are considering sites, and others for various reasons have not been able to incorporate sites as part of their certifications. But our goal is to, whenever it makes sense and it seems to work out, that we will pursue sustainable site certification.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And you could clearly see by your team here and what you've talked about today, how it was very integrated design process, very collaborative, really reaching beyond to engage the students and others about what they wanted. And so it's really a great example of that. Let's see, I have a question actually. How did the design and the work that you've done influence the maintenance of the site itself, or the future sites as well on campus?
Well, in terms of maintenance, it was very interesting working with our facilities and grounds groups. What it made them realize is that they're doing a lot of the stuff that is prescribed in sustainable sites. They had just not ever gotten to the point of documenting it or formalizing it, and this has given them that opportunity to be able to codify all of their different ways of doing things, and it is helping them re-examine how they're doing things. They are looking to move away from gas-powered equipment. They're electrifying a lot of their their equipment. We are actually looking to, I think there's an initiative to convert all of our maintenance vehicles, in fact, all of our entire vehicular fleet to electrified vehicles at some point in the near future here. So it's all pushing everybody in the right direction.
Great, great. Let's see, I think we have time for some more questions. We have a question from CC Haydock about what might be ASU's elevator pitch to other academic institutions to use sites.
I think for, in my opinion, that has to do with your own sustainability goals and aspirations. And it kind of comes down to how much buy-in you have from your leadership and senior administration. Again, here for ASU, we've had great push from our president, Dr. Crow, who has really pushed all of us here at ASU to figure out how to live and work in a more sustainable fashion. And as I said earlier, it has really permeated all aspects of ASU's operations, and it's a great learning experience for students to see that. And beyond that, it's also educating our own staff and faculty about what we're able to do at this level. And there's takeaways that people will take and use in their own personal lives. And I think that is part of what needs to be pushed by any institution or any group is how much are you wanting to walk the walk and just not have the talk. So what else can you say other than yeah, keep pushing it as much as you can at our level. I mean, as landscape architects, that is one of our prime missions, is to push the envelope as much as we can as far as sustainability. So drive the message upstairs, and hopefully it will trickle down from the top.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I want to add to that. I think for the sites, if more and more projects pushing for science credits and recognizing the importance of monitoring and after occupation, after construction, to understand landscape performance, I think all these practices can also help to integrate the academic and the practitioners and to work together. And hopefully this will become a common practice and be built into design process and the long-term maintenance management efforts.
Yeah, that feedback loop from science and practice and design is really important, and really informed the development of sites, is basing it on science, best practices in design, and trying to reach those performance outcomes that we're all trying to get. So that's great. Let's see, we have time for one more question, I think. Can you talk about the condensate water feature a bit more? Is this from HVAC condensate drainage? I've taken these to dry wells or sanitary. I've taken these to dry wells or sanitary sewer. What measures did you need to take to get agency approvals?
Well, I can talk a little bit about it, but this is just from the the condensate from the HVAC system, so it's not the blowdown water. So it just basically we collect it, and then it just drips. It's passive. It just drips into the soil, and the plants around it. Because it's in operation more than like the rainwater bioswales, we made sure that we have kind of shade plants and plants that can take more water around that area. But we did not have to. We just had to make sure that it wouldn't pool. That it would drain off so that we wouldn't get mosquitoes and nuisance water. But because it is clean water, we're able to use it.
That's great. And it's very cool looking, I have to
Thank
say.
you.
Okay, so I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you again to all our speakers today for ASU's leadership and all of the speakers' leadership in site sustainability and regenerative outcomes. Really appreciate you being a leader in this field and for taking your time today to prepare, and all the days before to prepare for this. So just to finish up, I do want to say there are other ways to get involved with sites aside from projects. We do have a community partner program that we launched quietly last year as a means to more actively engage with design and planning firms, universities, government agencies, public gardens, and other organizations with the goal to collaborate on the evolution of sites, to join forces in our collective work toward a more regenerative and resilient future. So there's the link there. And I think Anna Grace just posted it in the chat if you're interested. And also before we end, I want to be sure that you are aware of our virtual events that are coming up. I think the next slide. There you go. And so we have a bunch in March if you are interested, some that offer free site CEU. I'll point out one of them on March 3rd. We have one with Biohabitats, which is one of our newest community partner who is doing a webinar on some of our credits that deal with restoring and protecting our aquatic resources. So if you want to learn more about that and get really detailed, please join that. That's on our events page as well as all these other ones. We have some sessions at SELA. There's a sites workshop at University of Cincinnati. It's virtual, which is another community partner. As well as some other ones here. So please join this and do save the date for our next community call on April 28th. And lastly, thank you so much for your participation and attention today and time, and have a beautiful rest of your week. Thank you again.